Hi, I'm Jay, and with my friend Steve, we're doing another episode of Crazy Bible Stuff. What are we going to talk about today, Steve?
Well, today we're going to talk about something that I don't think is crazy at all, and it's in the Bible. In fact, the whole Bible is based on this idea, and yet there are people who proclaim that this is crazy. It's that there is a creator, that an intelligent being made the universe and made this guy and even made me and you. And some people think that's a crazy idea.
Well, it does seem crazy to somebody like an atheist.
Oh, yeah, because if there's no God, then it's crazy to believe that a God made us.
Yeah, that's nuts. Recently Stephen Hawking died, and he was a noted atheist. And, I've heard people talking about worldviews, and the thing about that breaks down with the atheistic worldview is when you talk about something like love. Where does love come from?
Right.
And your conscience, what determines good and bad and evil and righteousness and all that stuff. What pricks your heart? Is that something that's just like genetic? Is it like instinct? That's the arguments they get into. I love those kind of debates.
Yeah, it's more survival. There's, of course, if there's no God, then there is no such thing as good or evil.
That's right.
It's just our human definition.
Yeah.
Most people don't live like there's not a good or evil. I mean, they can say, well, like an atheist will say, if they feel mistreated, that's unjust. But then there's no standard if there's
that's
no
a morality
God.
Judgment.
Right. How can anything...
How can you have morality if there's no...
If an animal, a wolf kills a rabbit and eats it, that's not unjust. So if, one human kills another, if there's no God, if there's no absolute standard, why would that be unjust?
Right. Yeah, the atheists will say everything is subjective. There is no objective morality.
Right.
And
but they don't follow through and live that way.
No. And when push comes to shove, you start challenging them on it. It breaks down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like if it's going to be subjective, then it has to work in all situations for all of time. And so you can just simply come up with a situation like, well, if everything is subjective, then is there ever a situation when you could say go out and grab a child and just beat it to death? Is there ever a situation where that's okay? And then we'll say, well, no. I mean, who would agree with that? So if you say, well, no, where does that come from? Right. Well, it's just not right. Well, what's that based on?
Yeah, why wouldn't it be right?
That's a moral judgment. If you have a moral judgment, then your whole idea of atheism breaks down. And there's something going on that pricks your conscience to tell you what's right and wrong. And if it's never okay to do that, then that becomes an absolute. Yeah. If everything is subjective, you cannot have an absolute.
Right. As someone who I know who is an atheist told me, this person said that they believe that human beings are nothing more than machines, that all we are is a physiological machine made of matter, that there's nothing else. And this person said if science gets to the point it can duplicate what we've the physiological aspects of a human being, the intellectual, that will be a human being. And I'm like, they lost me there. Now that seemed crazy to me.
It is crazy.
But this person thinks I'm crazy for believing that the Creator, there is an intelligent being. Yeah. But Stephen Hawking, you mentioned, I went to see a movie about him. It was 4 or 5 years ago about his life. Yeah. And it was one of the most amazing movies I've ever seen. I'm trying to think of the title. Some of you know it. Put it on the comments if you can think of the title of the movie. But what an incredible guy. This guy, was brilliant when he went to college. And, in college, when he's about 20, he's diagnosed with a disease that normally kills people within 2 years. Yeah. With a lot of luck, you might make it 5 years, but it kills almost everybody within 5 years. He just died recently at 76, so he lived with a disease that kills almost everybody within 5 years.
That's
and
kind of
he
supernaturally
lived
crazy, too.
51 years. Watching the movie, I'm like, this guy had a miracle.
Yeah.
And yet he's claiming there's no God. And so the disease he had was degenerative. So he went rapidly down, and he spent most of his life, as you probably know, in a wheelchair, and he was all bent over, and the only thing he could move was one finger, and of course he had the electronic stuff where he could type with the one finger, and the typewriter or the computer then would speak for him. So in the movie, it showed him traveling the world, making motivational speeches and talking about hope, how important it is to have hope. Yeah,
hope.
And he was blowing my mind.
That's not the thesis of an atheist.
No, I'm like, this guy's whole life is saying, I mean, if you're an atheist, what is hope?
Yeah, what is hope?
I mean, you just are a machine, and you stop functioning one day, and you no longer exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's not hope. That's just existence.
So
hope is the stuff of somebody with a Christian worldview or any of the theological worldviews.
So I was so impressed with Stephen Hawking. I mean, I saw God all over him in the movie about his life, and it's like, and he married a Christian girl. He started dating her when he was 18, and then we found out he had the illness. She felt like she was supposed to go on, thinking he would die in 2 years. She married him, so he was married to a Christian girl who was praying for him, a Christian lady.
Oh, there you go.
They, a couple of decades, they eventually got a divorce, but I mean, he had God all around him, and yet he persisted that there's no such thing as God. So it just blew my mind that, I mean, I was deeply touched. So when he passed away, I started putting some tributes to Stephen Hawking on Facebook. Because, I mean, I admire anybody that can live that way.
Right.
And, I mean, I'm a Christian, and I have Christ. If I was confined to a wheelchair and could only move one finger, I would struggle with depression, probably suicide. Without God's help, I would want to give up.
Yeah.
And yet this man claims he didn't have God, and he had such hope that, I mean, how many people would be positive, and when they would interview him, he just looked so pathetic, but the words that would come out of the machine were just so hope-filled and positive and brilliant. I mean, he had the best attitude, and to me, there's no explanation for that, except even though he denied God, God was working in him and sustaining him.
It's like God decided, okay, I'm going to choose him to defy all of science and let him just go ahead and talk, but I'm going to show through him my miraculous supernatural power.
Yeah.
In spite of his denying it.
Yeah. I mean, something, I mean, I mean, something is going on. I encourage you to watch the movie about Stephen Hawking. I mean, and if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew, those are the three great religions that believe in a personal creator.
Yeah.
Not just an intelligence or a force. Buddhism, believes in a force.
Yeah.
Confucianism believes there's some kind of force. But the three monotheistic religions believe in a personal creator, that the creator is a person.
The only ones that are really not allowed, but that's not the right word, but the only ones who really believe in hope, who really understand the concept of hope, I guess, as part of their worldview.
Yeah, I mean, there's a logical ground for hope if there is more to this life.
Yeah.
But if we're just machines, I don't see any hope. Without Christ, I mean, what is life? And that's why I think so many people struggle with addiction and depression and discouragement. Is because in reality that's the truth.
Yeah.
If there is no God, there's no reason. But the good news is He's real.
Yeah. And he is the creator and oversees everything going on.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing about it all.
Yeah.
And we can't see it, can't feel it, touch it. None of our senses can really be in sync with it, but we know in our hearts. And when we are born again and we receive the Holy Spirit, sometimes you're knocked down, the breath's taken out of you. Sometimes it's real subtle, but every Christian who has asked God to come into his heart and take over his life, Christ Jesus is faithful to send the Holy Spirit, comes in and lives and abides with us. So it's just it's a very supernatural thing we get to experience. Only that way can we experience the Creator, the creation, and that we're part of it.
Yeah. So what is crazy? You know, atheists will say it's crazy to believe in a personal being that created the universe.
Yeah.
And they prefer to believe in what I call the formula, the atheistic formula of existence. Time plus nothing produced everything. And to me, that doesn't make a lick of sense. You got a little bit of nothing, or let's say you give them the ball of matter for the Big Bang. They don't ever say where that came from.
Yeah.
But you got this little hunk of the largest black hole ever, because everything that ever existed is in that. And it's just sitting there and doodly-doo, and you know, give it enough time and enough chance. I mean, there's nothing around it that can work on it, so where is any chance? But just give it enough time, and sooner or later, from out of nowhere, it's going to blow up and randomly create atoms, gazillions and gazillions of atoms.
With no order.
Yeah, I mean, with just on its own. Just you know, something's going to blow this thing up. That, think of the force it would take if everything that existed in the universe was in one clump. The gravitational force. Where would that force come from? Well, nobody knows. It just happened. Just give it time. Sit and wait.
People ask me if I believe in the Big Bang Theory, and I say, yes, I do. I believe God said, let there be light, and bang, it happened.
And, you know, the Big Bang, there are various ways to look at the creation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, God used natural processes to some degree. And so, you know, it was supernatural, though. It wasn't just all natural.
Right.
And that's where science misses, is they assume that there's nothing that exists except the natural and love, which is nothing if there's, you know, and justice. If you kick an atheist in the shin, he's going to say, you did me wrong. Oh, what's wrong?
What's wrong? Yeah. What do you base that on?
Yeah.
You know, after the Big Bang, there was no order. Yet atheists believe that from that disorder or from that chaos becomes order. And that is and they base their thing on science, and that is against science. Because if you leave things alone, they don't migrate toward order, they migrate toward disorder. Yeah. That's one of the basic laws in science.
And you know, we all use the assumption of observation. If you observe something that is complex, you automatically know that someone made it. Like if you're walking through the woods and you see a hammer on the ground, you don't go, whoa, look at that. Time and chance and gazillions of years made that hammer. Yeah. Somehow the wind blew, and you know, the iron came up from out of the ground, and the rain fell, and it just wore it away and made this hammer. No, even an atheist won't do that. Yeah. It's like, there's a hammer, I know somebody made it. Well, look at this, it's so much greater than a hammer. Look at your body. I mean, look at, you know, if a hammer couldn't have happened, if evolution couldn't hammer out a hammer, then how could evolution hammer out you?
In Romans, I think, was it 1:20, talks about how God reveals himself in his creation. And it's just like what you're talking about. How can you look around at all this creation and not imagine that, you know, there's a God that created that? If you want to take that atheistic scientific thing, if you want science to be the thing on which you hang your worldview, it has to be congruent with what you see. You don't see things migrating toward disorder. You see things migrating toward order. Darwin, I mean, you know, he proved that things migrate toward order. Well, that's contrary to what science says. And Darwin, if you read his book, The Origin of Species, which I have, and I was amazed that most of the atheists I've talked to and debated about worldviews have never read it. That's their Bible, you know. Right. And so I've read Origin of Species, and I was kind of shocked to find out that Darwin, you know, when all that was going on, was a theist. And you have to wait till you get to the very end of the book. It's almost like the last page or so. He says that he believes that just a few things were came about by the Creator. He didn't call him God, but the Creator. And then from there, it started to evolve. And he goes as far as to say that there's macroevolution. I mean, we see microevolution all the time, and like breeding animals and stuff like that. But there's no evidence of macroevolution. No fossils have been found, but they keep hoping that there will be someday.
And the mind is so important. I love reading science and always have like talking about science, and had a chemistry lab when I was a little boy.
We're science nerds.
Little chemistry lab and
born again science
physics
nerds.
And math and for me all of that is just, it couldn't have happened by time and chance. It's just. And so I grapple with the concept. In the beginning of our crazy Bible stuff, there's we both give our testimonies how Christ became real to us, and when in that I share that I believed in God and thought I was a Christian, and I got the question, if you were born a Hindu, what would you be today? And thinking about that, I realized I would have been a Hindu. And then the question said, why do you think you're a Christian? And I was like, I gotta figure out what I believe without the influence of religion.
Right.
And so I rejected Jesus, I rejected the Bible, I rejected Christianity, and I came to the Creator. And I couldn't reject the idea that there had to be a Creator. It wasn't logical to me. It's like this couldn't have happened. Just like I couldn't reject the idea that there's a Corvette plant.
Yeah.
There's no Corvette plant. Never has been one. Corvettes just happen. I mean, I can't reject that.
Darwin, even when he was explaining the eye, the human eye, he even said, this is beyond the reasonable expectation of evolution arriving at this. It's too much. It's too complex. Even he said that about the eye. Yet I go camping with an ophthalmologist who's an atheist or agnostic, I guess, and he just can't buy it. And I said, well, the guy that you put your hope and faith into here, Darwin even says that the eye is too much, and we can't really even begin to explain how it can come from this to this to this to this to ever arrive at a human eye.
Boy, trying to figure all this out and think about it, it's making my brain starting to smoke. It's overheating.
Yeah, well, we better go then.
Well,
we rip it up.
We need to get to beyond the brain. The human brain can understand so much. What Stephen Hawking couldn't do is to look beyond the brain. He was a man with a heart. He was a man that I admired, but he couldn't open the eyes of his heart, or he was unwilling for whatever reason, and to see that what kept him going all those years, both emotionally and physically, was the Creator.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're going to go on that one. And thanks for sticking around. Contact us on crazybiblestuff@gmail.com or comment at the bottom of this podcast here, and we will see you next time.